You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
It's a real pleasure. This is Brian Kwanwood sitting with French-Algerian artist Kader Attia. Real pleasure to have him here. We were just saying that Kader was in a conference at MoMA this weekend where Akile Mbembe said, "I'm not responsible for anything that I say in English." No, those were his words. So I think it's nice to open with this, where no one is responsible here in this podcast for anything we say in English.
So am I.
Huh? Okay, so
I'm not responsible also of what I say in English and many other languages. I have to say Dutch, at all.
Chinese,
Cantonese, Mandarin,
French, Arabic.
French. I'm just responsible when I speak slang.
So Kader was born in 1970 in France. Important bit of information. For later on, he grew up in Paris and in Algeria. Preceding his studies at the École Supérieure des Arts Appliqués Duperré and the École Nationale Supérieure des Arts Décoratifs in Paris and at Escola Massana, Centre d'Art et Disseny in Barcelona, he spent several years in the Congo and in South America. So this is, I think it's important to know this about you. Your history and your biography is quite special. The experience with these different cultures, the histories of which...
I also, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I also studied philosophy during 3 years in Paris 8.
Okay.
Maybe it's not mentioned in the bio, but it's important to notice this because of my reflection until today is very much using the distance of philosophy. Anyway, we'll come back on that.
And as your bio says, the experience with these different cultures, the histories of which over centuries have been characterized by rich trading traditions, colonialism, and multi-ethnic societies, has fostered your intercultural and interdisciplinary approach of research. And for many years, you have been exploring the perspective that societies have on their history, especially as regards to experiences of deprivation and suppression, violence and loss, and how this affects the evolving of nations and individuals, and the connection to collective memory. And so this is why a lot of your work gravitates around the notion of repair. And this is a really important kind of central concept for Kader's artwork. But I think what is also really interesting to talk about today, above and beyond and surrounding your work and your thinking, is also the way that it has consolidated spatially in La Colonie, which is a very complex space that you founded in 2016 in Paris to share ideas and to provide a kind of agora for a discussion. So with this very brief introduction, I think it would be really nice to talk about La Colonie, but then also to go on to kind of transition from that to thinking about what is also happening in Algeria and between France and Algeria today, and how a space like La Colonie that you run as an artist sort of traverses these activities and these changes that are happening. Maybe you can start by just telling us a bit about your thinking behind La Colonie, because it's also a functional bar, it's a club, it's a restaurant, it's many things.
I mean, restaurant is very simple. We just provide plates of sausage and cheese, and because this is another profession, to have a restaurant. It's very complex, especially in Paris. But the idea was definitely to decomplexify. Let's say, let's map it like this. Let's put it like this: the relation that we can have with emotion, from enjoying a lecture or some readings of poems to ending with an incredible, crazy party. I've always been frustrated worldwide when at the end of 2 days of symposium, there's this moment that I'm sure you know, Brian, where the place where the symposium took place is like closing, and we are all in the street. We don't know where to go. Some want to go to have a drink. The other, they want to have, they are starving. And then you have this very bizarre moment where the group is like fragmenting itself, but does not really want to. And I've lived like many years the frustration of not having a space where the discussion can continue, actually. So the idea of La Colonie for me was to be able to create a space where we can debate, but also after the debate, where arguments were like, animating the conversation. And there is another moment, another space and time, another space/time, where we can continue this, deepening the conversation with a glass of wine, with just in another atmosphere. And I have to say that in France, talking about colonialism, this is crucial. Because French society is a society that have always been denying the injury of colonialism. So when you start to debate on the Algerian War, for instance, in Paris, at La Colonie, even if La Colonie is clearly a leftist space with the whole diversity of left that we can imagine today, we still have some right-wing people who come sometimes, who pop up, taking the mic and arguing like that, no, colonialism was not that bad. I'm going to explain you why. Even some leftist people, I think they are the worst, by the way, when they start to take the mic and say, okay, I'm left. Huh? I just want to introduce myself. I'm teaching at the university. We had this once. I'm a professor at the University of Bordeaux. I'm a leftist. When someone starts to say, I'm a leftist, you really have to be scared. And then he started to say, colonialism was not what you described. And then I remember that the guy was booed by the audience because he was saying that colonialism has brought technology, hospitals, etc., And but I said, no, leave him finished. And I think this is very important. An interesting place for debate has to be moderated. Otherwise, you're gonna get a circus. I have nothing else against circus. I love circus. But if you want to build something, if you want to repair the fragmentation of the society we are living in, you really need to include the thought, the speech the discourse of both the perpetrator and the victim. And at that point, I swear, God, Brian, it's not easy. Even when we did debate about Algeria, we will talk about this later, I was with François Vergès and other friends, Olivier Marbeuf. But actually, I asked Olivier and François to help me to moderate the debate because I knew it was about to go to be a bit hot in terms of arguments. And it was okay. Or when we did also a debate about the Gilets jaunes as well. It's the same, because the Gilets jaunes is a very ambivalent movement where you have a majority of the Gilets jaunes are leftist, but you have far right in it, right, and also other form of extreme. So obviously, because the Gilets jaunes have opened a sort of crack, a fault in this invisible wall which separates the elite and the people. So in this fault, everyone wants to go through, of course. And this I have discovered this with La Colonie. So the principal idea, to answer your question, was to stage a place where we can share emotionally, intellectually, and build something together. And it worked, because La Colonie indeed is a place where you have both. But then I have to admit that I have also learned on unexpected situations, like the question of moderating. Because moderating a debate really in a place that is not this institutional Pompidou or MoMA or Tate or whatsoever place where finally you don't have really a connection with the reality, in the sense that people coming from nowhere taking the mic and trying to also hijack also sometimes a little bit the debate in a very aggressive way, or you don't have really had this in the institution. I found it completely conventional most of the time. That's why we get bored.
Right.
In alternative spaces, I mean, in La Colonie, you can have really fixed people. Remember the colloque that we did together on colonialism and science fiction?
Right.
There was this guy who was, we don't know,
Right. Speaking about the Gilets jaunes.
Jehan was speaking, and he started to everyone was listening carefully in a silence in the morning, and he started from the back of the room to shout blah 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 in the Gilets jaunes. And I think it was interesting this also because it's this reality.
Nostalgie.
Yeah, there was this Gamal Abdel Nasser images because Jehan was speaking about his nuclear program. And I think the guy was an Algerian, and he said, "Why are you so nostalgic, guy? Look at the Gilets jaunes." And it was interesting. But it was interesting.
I think he also wanted to use the bathroom.
I think he used the bathroom. So just to say, I'm here, after he used it, he intervened in the debate, which I think for me, it's important because it definitely defined the nature of the space.
Yeah. It's also a really nice feeling at the end of the conference because the space shifts completely. So we had this conference on colonialism and science fiction that we did together, with e-flux, 3 months ago about. And as the conference is winding down and everyone is still very serious and very focused, you had also young people coming in off of the street who wanted to get a drink. So the space was already starting to turn from this kind of serious and very focused environment to something else. So also related to the question of where to go and what to do after the conference to continue. Already the space was organically changing into something else, which was really interesting for us to see. Yeah, it's a very special place. But then how do you then actively, like there's a certain kind of, there's a lot of warmth in the space. I think this is your presence and the people who are there. It's a very very warm and very hospitable place. But then at the same time, you're very conscious that it is a, like as you describe, a crack or a kind of a fault within the society. It's very unlike most other places for intellectual debate in France. So where do you see the violence, the kind of violence that you want to, you insist that when La Colonie is written, there's a strike through, it's crossed out. So there's a real active negation that you want to have. You even place it in, it's really very much in the center of Paris, right between Gare de l'Est and Gare du Nord. So it's really in the center, the heart of the city. What is the particular kind of violence or the cracks in the society that you want to access and to open up with this space?
I mean, it's very important to first do a genealogy of how La Colonie arrived in Paris. I mean, I've been working on these hinges of colonialism for more than 2 decades, and I'm both young and old enough to have known and attended, this refusal by institution. I remember director of museum, curator telling me, mid-2000s, why are you doing this about independence of Senegal or Cameroon or Algeria? I would like a project more, when they invite you in exhibition and you propose the project. No, I would like something more poetical, something, and I was like, just don't want to admit the truth, because I can speak about this later, but this what all is about in this French denial of colonial injuries and crime is and look at Macron when he said colonialism was a crime against humanity. He almost lost the election. A week after, he has to change his mind. And he officially said, no, I did not say that. I said it was bad. He really collapsed in the plots. A week, 2 days after he said this in Algeria, before the election. I have attended this sort of denial officially. And for me, the most problematic concerns of colonialism in a contemporary way was the fact that it is a concept that encapsulates you. And that's why I wanted to do this logotype where I did the logotype. I wrote La Colonie and I put a line on it to signify that the settlement, you do not include me in it. So that any person who read that think you do not include me in la colonie, the settlement.
Yeah.
That's why you have this line. And I think this is probably one of the most important aspect of of decolonizing. In that time, we were not using the term decolonizing. Decolonial is a term which came from South American studies, Walter Mignolo, and all this school of. In France, you don't have that. In France, also very important to understand, Brian, and for the people who are listening us, contrary to Latin America, where the decolonial concept came from the university, from the academia, in France, it came from activists. It's very important to understand that. Comité Adama, Comité Rosa Parks, these are the association who brought they've been inspired by this Walter Mignolo because they have read them. But in France, the concept decolonial came out publicly with activists, never with the academia. It was in 2008, there was a very important demonstration in France called La Marche pour la Dignité, the March for Dignity. And it was a march organized by Black and Arabs from the suburbs, and white people also, and Asian people. But the majority were Arab and Black who have been suffering from police violences. This is the way it started. This, what we called decolonial. Everyone is speaking about decolonial now. I don't know here, but in France, it's incredible. But 10 years ago, it was not the case. It started. And I'm insisting on this because here we got back to La Colonie. For me, the idea was not only to recreate a sort of academia arena in a popular neighborhood, but a place for the popular, for the banlieue, basically, which are these people living in the outskirts of Paris, to transmit messages of their actions. And this is what is happening. I think the day that you left, the day after you left, there was a discussions with academics like Tony Negri, Etienne Balibar, but there was also Omar Slaughty, who is from the Comité Rosa Parks, and they were in the room, two women, Assa Traoré, the sister of Adama Traoré, who has been killed by the police in 2016. She was there. There were different activists from this fight against the continuity of colonialism that do exist within, for instance, structure of repression like the police, for instance.
It's a big question how to deal with the history of colonialism, especially now when it suddenly appears in many cases as a new question, which is can be very insulting also to many people when because of a number of right-wing movements seem to have, even in the US, have completely taken over the government. You have many people, even the younger generation, who seem to have also people who are historically quite privileged, discover the history of colonialism for the first time and realize its horror. And in a way, it's almost like they want to, their first reaction, and the reaction of privileged people, maybe especially in the US and North America, and maybe even Western Europe, is to exterminate. It's just when you realize the horror is there, you sort of want to go back to the safety of the house that you are of the privilege that you are from. You want to exterminate colonialism. When for people who come from diasporic families, who realize that their bodies are created out of very strange combinations that come from colonialism. It's strange when their bodies and their families are made from indigenous people, from invaders. From colonizers themselves. It's of course decolonizing does not happen so easily. In fact, it's more like living with this, or finding a way to live together with this kind of disease. Or no, it's not a matter of changing your clothes for a nicer outfit. It's more like if you want to decolonize yourself, oftentimes it's you may have to remove your arm or remove your head, or or remove your mind completely. So if one is to live as someone who comes from chains of diasporas, How does one live with one's own complicity and colonial history?
Again, if we do a genealogy of the way that colonialism as a new concept, I said new because before there was anti-colonialism. And anti-colonialism and then post-colonialism. Especially anti-colonialism, for me, is what precedes decoloniality.
Right.
But I think that both of them have nothing to do together. I think anti-colonialism was struggling during the colonialism to get independences. And then after, during this post-colonial time, they were dealing with the legacy of colonialism.
Yeah.
Decoloniality is something different. Decoloniality has to do much more with, much complex form of repression and segregation.
Right.
And then you can apply this to genders, to cultures that have never been colonized. And within gender's issue also, you have other forms of, so to speak, repression or invisibilization. For instance, that's why in feminism, you have, at La Colonie, we receive a lot of Afro-feminists. We have an incredible seminaries by Françoise Vergès, Gertie Gambouri, Karima Lazali, who actually raised more than 600 people once a month on Sunday afternoon. Even if it's super weathered, it's incredible, it's always packed. And it is called Decolonizing the Arts. And it's about theater, about art also. Drawing, paintings, art plastique, literature. And what I found interesting was, yesterday it happens that Françoise was in New York, so we had a coffee because we could not meet the last weeks. We work a lot together with Françoise Vergès. And we were talking also about our concern at the same time. And I have to tell you here, Brian, it's important to mention that even because of this sort of specialization, or particularization of the decoloniality, following what I just told you, that decolonialism is not only about culture or color, but also about genders, about social classes. Anyway, and he is very strong in the US. That's why we were speaking about this with Françoise. But I'm happy to share this conversation with you. Is that we are starting to be very concerned by this sort of so-called legitimization of who can speak about who.
Yeah.
I think this is the next step of what we will have to fight against at La Colonie. Yeah. And we are now, with Françoise, we agree that we need to organize a symposium on that.
Right.
Because in Afrofeminism, for instance, you can have people of color, darker than others, saying that you are too white for me. Right. You cannot speak about, or you are not gay, so don't speak about gay. Or you are not transgender, don't speak about trans. And I think that this is extremely problematic. Right. These sounds like ideas and concepts from the far right that has infiltrated the left and has been transmitted through the left, and now they are growing. Yeah. And we need all of us
following really old race, kind of racial taxonomies.
Exactly. It is called identitarian. Yeah. It's Nazi. If you are not an Aryan, so what? An Aryan is a very precise notion. I'm very skeptical on that. And at La Colonie, that's why I think we have also the need of being a self-critic as well on what we are producing in terms of, common sense. I think it's extremely important.
Right. Maybe to sympathize a bit with many young people who kind of struggle a bit to find the terms for understanding how the territory works. It's of course interesting to think about the way that traditionally anti-colonial movements of the late 20th century were really assumed this kind of transcendental container of the state. Know that the state had a certain kind of autonomy and a certain kind of sovereignty, and that you could deal on this level. But then even in say the revolutions across the Arab world, with with something you find actually the state is actually a very 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 complex and kind of loose entity. It's actually oftentimes it's much more about the military. In Egypt, the military is a client of the US. So then the kind of automatic sovereignty of the state, which is very, very important for non-alignment movement, for Arab solidarity, this is not really there. So the terminology is much more vague. So of course, you can imagine many strange things sort of like flying in the window when the terms are very different. And I guess recently you've been at La Colonie and in general, you've been thinking a lot about what is happening in Algeria with Bouteflika.
I mean, I was very interested by what you were just saying. And if you may, I would like to continue just a little bit on that, because I think there's a crucial aspect in what we are doing at La Colonie also. This morning, I was reading an article, I think in the New York Times or anyway, about the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood is about to be declared as a terrorist organization by Trump administration, asked by LCC, General, Marshal. I think the mutation of colonialism today is, a very, very part of this sort of global or hegemonic way that capitalism has taken over all ideologies. China was communist, is like completely capitalistic. Islamic State, Daesh, they were using capitalist network, YouTube to really... And it's very important to understand that what we are doing at La Colonie today is not focused on this sort of past colonialism, fetishizing a sort of non-alienated times, etc. I think the crucial question of colonialism is how it does exist today. And one of the symposium we're going to organize on the 16th of June with Anna Pinto and Giovanna Zapperi, that we did last year already, on the next 16th of June, is called The White West, the resurgence of fascism as cultural forces.
Right.
And in this sense, this year, this session, will completely bind the colonial aspect of fascism and this sort of link with the neoliberalization of the society. I mean, the fact that neoliberalization of capitalism today, this sort of extreme wild capitalization of the world, is definitely a neo-proto-fascism, if it's not only already one. And I think this is very important to understand that, for instance, if you look at the way not only fascism in Europe is clearly installing itself, like Salvini in Italy and the far right at the parliament in Germany, etc. But if you take Middle East, for instance, Saudi Arabia, the way it has been proceeding, killing journalists, killing people in Yemen, beheading women on the street in the midday and totally supported by United States. I think for me, this form of neocolonialism has to be spoken publicly in spaces that almost today you are not expected to hear about, because the institutional spaces do not do that. Right. And this is what we do at La Colonie. And to link to your question about Algeria, one of the most important part of what is happening now there is, I would say, the consequences of what is happening. Most of the politicians and business oligarchs have fled the country. They left the country, or they have been, for those who have been able to be, who were stayed, they have been jailed. No. So there is definitely, in this country, a momentum of a soft revolution. They called it the revolution of the smiles, which is beautiful because demonstrations are absolutely not violent, which is incredible. Especially when you know Algerian, we are very nervous, And so we joke about that constantly. But at the same time, we don't know what is coming up, to be honest. Because we have to be clear also with this. Algeria is in the map that whose agenda is not, written by Algeria.
Yeah.
And it has oil, it has a strategic position in the Mediterranean and with sub-Saharan African country where different organizations in the desert are acting. And Algerian oil is exploited by Exxon. Exxon is an American company. There are also other investments, but Exxon is one of the main. In Tamanrasset, there is an American base. And then we know today that because the prices of oil have, comparing to like 10 years ago, have really collapsed, that Algeria will live in 2 years a major economic crisis. We know that. So I'm very happy with what is happening now, and we are at La Colonie taking care of as we can of the situation, but we have to be very careful on what will happen. You know, the majority of the government representatives are corrupted. We know that. Even the new team and the new Ben Salah, the new ruler of Algeria, they have all been part of this corrupted masquerade. So we know that in the end, it's like when today someone corrupted is invited by the Ministry of Justice for investigation, you cannot stop to laugh because it's like one corrupted person who invites another corrupted person to talk about corruption. It's ridiculous. But at La Colonie, we are located in Paris. It's not so far from Algeria. It's 2.5 hours.
Wow,
Since
so
the
close.
beginning, we've been 2 times. I've been 2 times there, and I'm going to go back as soon as I'm back to work with friends. I was with my team proposing one thing. First, we cannot, I would say, from Paris, intervene, also being super moralistic about what Algerian people should do. The Algerian Revolution started from the stadiums with the people, basically with hooligans, who were singing. It started really with the songs of hooligans in stadiums, because in many countries, like I knew this in Congo Brazzaville when I was living there. Most of the time, in very repressive society, the liberty of expression find its way in stadiums of football, where a lot of young people are gathered, and you have this sort of pretext that it's a sport. So, and it's very funny because the most comic, the most funny words against the regime came out from the stadium. There is a song called, which is inspired by the broadcast series Casa Papel. It's called La Casa de Mouradia. Mouradia is the presidential palace. You have a lot of things like this. It's very funny. But it started in the stadium, in the stadiums of all Algeria. Then slowly, after 5 kind of anonymous calls on Facebook, which were followed by thousands of people, the students started to go out as well. And then the lawyers, and then the doctors, and then the whole society. But what I found important is that because we have one leg in Algeria, one leg in France or in Germany, as a diaspora, we through the weeks we have discovered that emerging forces were much more important than we thought. For instance, feminism. I was very surprised that even though if I know several Algerian feminists in Algiers, in Timimoun, in Tizi Ouzou, I didn't know that there was a so big movement of Algerian women who wanted to take over, for instance, what we call le Code de la Famille. The Code de la Famille, the Family Code, is a book that really organized the Algerian society by putting the woman behind the man. It's an insane Middle Age code that has to be abolished. And then I saw this coming. Out from demonstration, and we decided at La Colonie to work as a diaspora on 3 aspects. That as diaspora, we can act better than Algerians who are in Algeria. The first one is what I was telling you. Sensibilize the international audience to the Algerian feminism. So on the 11th of May, we do organize a very important event at La Colonie with several feminist associations, lawyers from Algeria, from France, to speak about that. That is one of the aspects. The second aspect, it's called in French, les biens mal acquis. The huge flow of money that went out of Algeria to London, to Frankfurt, to Paris, to the Gulf Emirates Bank, is now time to unveil that. To everyone knows that almost 1,000 of billions since the independence of Algeria has left the country. So just today, someone sent me a picture of a man demonstrating in Paris for the 1st May, and he has 2 big posters talking about that. We know that the money is here in Paris, bring it back to Algeria. So we are now organizing with hackers, hack on Swiss bank. I can send you some link if you want, if you're interested. We have hacked 2 private Swiss banks, and we found accounts of the Algerian Prime Minister, Bouteflika, the president, Rehab, one of the 5th richest man in Africa, who is the 1st richest Algerian man, who has made billions. I think his fortune is about 3.5 billions. I mean, we found this with a group of Algerian hackers. Basically, a group, I cannot, of course, give you the name, but they are in Berlin. And that's the second thing, les biens mal acquis. And the third aspect, which interests us today because we are using a media, is the way that the Western media is depicting Algeria. Because as always, the non-Western Christian world is always diabolized in the media in different degrees, the black, and this is the consequences of colonialism. So in the case of Algeria, in Germany, when I was reading newspaper, like 3 weeks after the beginning, I was like shocked to read that the German journalists, who have never been there, were depicting demonstration manipulated by Islamists, violent, dangerous, etc. In France, it was the same. What's next? We have to be careful. We don't want an Islamic Republic in front of us at the Mediterranean. So we have decided with the crew of La Colonie to also work on that, to work on the way. We have created a Facebook page. It is called ODIA, Observatoire de la Diaspora Algérienne, which means Observatory of the Algerian Diaspora, and which aim at reading constantly news and anything that is official in major newspaper. We know that there are a lot of shit or fake news, but we focus on major newspaper articles that are talking about Algeria. And if something is like clearly propaganda to diabolize the Algerian revolution, we immediately released it online, and then we put the name of the journalist, and then we denounce this.
Wow. What's the website?
It's not a website at the moment, it's a page.
Okay.
It is called, the page is Odia on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's working very well because today we have like almost 400 followers in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And we release, for instance, the leaks that we got with the hackers are on the page.
Right.
And this became viral. I mean, we received so many. Even a lawyer contacted us because she's in court about a case of corruption, and she said, "What you have here is very interesting." So, if you want, Brian, it also reached the initial aim of La Colonie. Yeah. As an artist, I've always been concerned by this limit that representation has in terms of political engagement. There is a moment where action is needed. There's a moment where the debate, the real debate, the arguments, the debate which include the perpetrator, the victim, there's a moment where where hacking is crucial. Otherwise, you just produce gaze and images.
Yeah, you open the cracks and the faults, as you say. Kader, Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
You're welcome. I'm
Kader
sorry
Attia.
I was a bit long, but
No, it's great.
I needed.